Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Look at rain, shine, or anything between. We're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right on left side.
Connor Baltazar.
And for this week's episode, we are inching closer to the football preview. Not quite yet, but we wanted to still do something football related. So I decided we would go back to an idea that I think I pitched during the episode that we did with Drew, the recruiting draft, of talking about what Connor and I's 5 favorite commits during the lifetime of the show have been. So to sort of frame the issue here, we're talking about excitement when they committed. We're not necessarily talking about how their careers ended up, because that wouldn't be a favorite recruits list. That would be a best players list, which, I mean, we can do that someday too. But we're focusing on what we felt when these guys committed. And the stipulation is that we both had the same 1 and 2, and the 1 and 2 were going to be very obvious. So we're just going to get them out of the way. Avery Johnson and Lincoln Cure would have been 1 and 2. Just know that they are the true 1 and 2, but we're not going to include them on the list just because it was too obvious.
Yeah, I mean, we talked before the show, and we both had those 1 and 2s. And I think they're probably most people's 1 and 2, I think, for those that follow recruiting pretty closely. I think primarily because there's been a lot of really great recruits that K-State has landed that would be tough to qualify for this list just because they didn't have a lot of buildup. I think a great example of that is Cedric Marsh from this year's class. I think if he had been kind of a known commodity in the K-State recruiting world prior to his commitment, I think he'd have a shot at making my list. But I didn't know who he was until maybe a day or two before he committed, and even then it was just kind of his name was getting kind of floated around here and there, and there was no indication anything was imminent there. So that wouldn't be a good faith entry on this list.
The other thing that we're going to stipulate is we're not counting this year's commits as in the 27 class, because we're strictly doing guys that signed. Half of that, at least for me personally, is not wanting to jinx it, because there are 2 or 3 guys that probably would have made the list for me, which I also think just shows you the uptick in recruiting. But yeah, I really just didn't want to jinx it, and maybe Connor feels the same, and maybe it's just a better exercise with the classes that have already gotten here.
I mean, I think it's fair, especially because even though the class is, if the recruiting cycle was done today, I think we'd have everybody we wanted to get in terms of positional needs. But we're still maybe gonna see a breakout guy that we add late, a Larry Porter, or there may be guys that decommit and then we have to backfill the position. So with it being an active recruiting class, just probably is not the best idea to try and gauge excitement on commitments when they still have the ability to very easily decommit and take away all of that excitement.
Yeah. With all that out of the way, I think it's time that we just start the list. And Connor, you can who is your number 5? You can start us out, and you can start the conversation here.
Yeah. Well, it's also a good time, I guess, to talk about just it really put in perspective how much recruiting that we have covered on this show, kind of going back through the history. It takes us all the way back to the very first episodes of the show. But I looked through this list, and I think my number 5 for me personally is probably going to be Garrett Oakley. He was someone who I've always really, really liked from the start. He from the beginning was someone that I really bought in on, and I was very excited about that commitment early. Now, my recruiting rankings, I didn't put him too high. I put him middle of the pack, because I was trying to be pretty realistic because I knew he was very raw prospect and had a long way to go, but he was also really one of the first true pass catching tight ends that K State had recruited in years. Because I mean, the tight end was just not used in that manner for the K State offense for quite a while. So that was a really exciting moment, especially uh, I'm being kind of an under the radar guy where you could see the flashes. So I was very excited with the Garrett Oakley commitment when that happened. So even though he was like a 2-star recruit, I think on Rivals, so the fanfare wasn't there necessarily, but when you watch the tape, it was easy to get excited.
Yeah, Garrett Oakley, that was someone that if we were doing it based on performance would have made my list, but I didn't. I was not a big fan of either of the tight ends in the 22 class, and I think I'm not sure if I made that clear on the episode that we did. I don't know how. I guess it's been so long since I went back and listened to any of those episodes that I don't know how like brutal I would have been, but I didn't like either of Often Loft. Well, I didn't like Lofton. I thought Oakley was fine, but no, given what he turned into, I think that's a big one. That you were a really big Oakley guy, and I remember just sitting there as like, all right, how do I temper his expectations? And then I never did it, and it turns out you were right on that.
Yeah, like I have as much fun with guys like Oakley, where you can say you were there at the beginning, as I do with guys that you just utterly miss the mark on. Like if anything, I think sometimes like the guys you completely whiff on are even more fun. Like for both of us, especially you bring it up a lot, but Jacob Parrish is like kind of the gold standard there right
Yep.
now for us. But another one I think is Austin Romaine.
Yep.
He was really low on our lists as well. He really only had one defining trait out of high school, but obviously he's made a good name for himself. But yeah, like that's part of the joy of following recruiting. If you're okay with the misses, which I am, like it doesn't really affect me personally, but like if you're okay with the misses, you can make a lot of fun out of them because in a lot of ways they're just as fun as the hits.
Yeah. And someone that I was always very high on, but it took a minute for him to show onto the field is my number 5 entry, and that's Joe Jackson. I was in love with Joe Jackson whenever he first committed because I thought that he had both positional versatility and I thought he was going to be a legitimately good running back. And it took a while for him to sort of show those flashes that he showed in high school. But you also got to keep in mind that who he was behind for his first couple of seasons in a K State uniform. And I think the Utah game, I don't think he is the Utah game because that's like a first round running back. Let's relax. But I do think that he is someone that you could rationally count on to average, anywhere between 90 and 100 yards a game, and someone who has that potential to just get up and go and take and house a run. That I do think he is faster, at least on the field, than Deuce and DJ were. Now DJ came out of nowhere and ran an insane 40 for some reason, but I I was always a big Joe Jackson guy. I was super excited when he committed, and he's going to be, again, stipulating that Avery was going to be number 1. He's going to be the 23 class's lone representative for me for this year. And I wanted so badly to put him at 4 just because it matches his number, but I couldn't justify that given the 4 people in front of him for me.
Yeah, Joe Jackson was someone where uh, like I was very high on him by the time we got to our recruiting grades. But when I think about the day that he committed, I was happy that we landed him. I was a fan of him, but I can't say that I was as over the moon as you were with him. With you putting him at 5, I was like, there's no way I can justify putting him on my list because I liked him, but I didn't love him. It took me a while to fully kind of grow into the cult of Joe Jackson, but you did well enough to indoctrinate me eventually. But I like still a really strong pick. Like I don't think there's anything like any real issue with that at all. Like, and I think there's probably I bet most people will probably be fine with that as well.
Yeah. So who's your number four then?
Yeah, I think for me, looking through my list, I'm probably going to have to go with JoJo Scott. Uh, he was someone that I really remember falling in love along with you, Ace. His film, like he had fantastic skills and pass coverage, and just everything about him just screamed future cover corner, like future island guy, and like it helps especially to have an entertaining film for cornerback, and that's 100% JoJo Scott, and uh, he's kind of log jammed right now. I mean, there's a few corners from that class that are just kind of stuck. Him, Sirius Stinyard, and Martell Jackson. Those are three corners that like we liked all of those guys for different reasons, uh, but they just for various reasons just like haven't been able to get on the field yet, like through no fault of their own. I mean, they're also only going to be redshirt freshmen, I think, this upcoming year, so they've got plenty of time. But JoJo Scott, that was a an early uh, an early ad that I was really happy with for that class. I'm able to slot him a little above Oakley just because I think he was more obviously translatable. So very happy with JoJo Scott. Glad that he was retained as well. He was someone I was a bit worried about as a flight risk, but he is still here, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about him because he does make an appearance later down the list for me. But my number four is Toby Osunsonmi, which is funny because he was a true positionless guy when he committed. In fact, I think I projected him to play Sam linebacker here. He ended up putting on weight and moving down to edge. But I think why I was so excited for him was not only was he a Kansas kid, he was a Kansas kid that had some of the most freakish upside that we've seen. And he's parlayed that into getting a bag for Indiana, which, by the way, I try not to blame guys for bag chasing. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Pardon
Bless
me.
you.
Thank you. But I try not to blame a guy for bag chasing, especially because, I get it. Money is nice. But, I mean, Toby as a speed rusher genuinely still has NFL potential. I think he could have gone, well, if he didn't get hurt, he could have gone to the draft and he would have been day 3 guy, like a developmental piece, or maybe a special teams demon. They can move him to linebacker. But this is one where my favorite thing has always been and will always be upside. And Toby Osunsonmi, from the moment that he committed, he just screamed upside. And he still does and will probably, as much as it pains me to say, he's probably going to get there at Indiana just because the way that Kurt Signetti ups the overalls on all of his players.
Yeah, I think you said it really well on Toby. I won't spend too much time on him because he is coming up here uh, on my list as well. So TBD on that.
There's a non-zero chance that our 3 and 4s are flipped.
Potentially, yeah. I guess they
My
are.
number 3 is JoJo Scott.
Okay, then yeah. You're absolutely right. Then yeah, my number 3 is Toby.
Okay, so you can talk about Toby and I'll talk about JoJo when you're done.
All right, yeah. So perfect segue here. Toby, I was very excited when we landed him. A lot of the same reasons, pretty much identical reasons as you, because I'm like that was I'm a guy where yeah you looked at the track numbers, you looked at his highlight tape, and just everything about his game. Like you said, like it screamed potential, and that made him really exciting as an addition. It definitely helps. I think that Toby was one of, if not the first, commitments in the history of our show. Uh, so he was somebody we got to cover very early on, and so I have a lot of rosy memories um, about Toby Osunsanmi and watching his film, and I trying to figure out how we were going to do evaluations for the show, and so some of it may just be a bit of nostalgia, but I also do legitimately remember being very excited about Toby's potential in the same way that you said, where I thought that he was a guy where if he could put it all together and figure it out, then like he was going to be a problem at K State, and at times he was. And I think maybe if we had had a better team this past year, then yeah, like I think maybe K State fans would look back on him with even higher regard. So I do though wonder, if Toby stays and doesn't transfer this past offseason, do we land, Wendell Gregory? Uh, like, probably not. Like
We
maybe we
might be able to land Gregory, but we lose Allen.
maybe. Well, I'm more wondering about Hill at that point. Like,
We lose probably both of Hill and Allen because they're both speed rushers in a way that Toby was. Like Wendell is a complete pass rusher. Toby was a speed rusher.
fair enough. Yeah, that's a fine analysis, I think. So there is a lot of I think what ifism about Toby. I think also like he did kind of become that in a way because he always had those traits that were wildly athletic. And he was never able to get on the field as a linebacker, but moved down to edge rusher, which I was like you when he committed. I thought he'd be a linebacker. I didn't really see him as having the frame for being an edge rusher, but really he did fairly well with that. It's a shame that he got hurt this past season, but I think he'll get plenty of opportunities at Indiana. I think to kind of showcase as he hits the end of his college eligibility.
Yeah. So my number 3 was JoJo Scott. We talked about him a little bit, and he's probably the leader on the I am upset that he is not in the college football games leaderboard. Him and Keegan Collins are both not in the game. Spoilers for another person that's going to be making an appearance very soon. But JoJo Scott is probably the most fun I've had watching a commits tape, just because he does so much on the field. Like he's getting interceptions, he's making kick returns, he's showing a lot of twitch, he has a lot of really good coverage reps. I think there's like 1 or 2 run stopping reps as well, and he did it with a sort of swagger to him that was, it was just really fun to watch. And he, to this day, I'm not sure I will ever find defensive tape that will be as fun as JoJo Scott's. And I think that's a big reason why I was just so enamored with him when he committed. And I do think it is a little bit of a shame that he is kind of buried on the depth chart right now. Obviously still young, still has time to grow. But I think Zayshawn Rich breaking out pretty early in his career, and then Donovan McIntosh being from an earlier class, I think both of those were really, like, those were kind of the 1-2 guys. Then you had the rotation of Amarian Fortenberry, Justice Clemens, and a few other corner transfers. So it's not a case of JoJo Scott got recruited over because he's bad, because he's a redshirt freshman. I don't think they've made the determination of him being bad yet. But, it would have been a lot of fun to see him play early, and I still think that he will be a very fun player for K-State. But Yeah, he's going to be the highest defensive player on this list, just because, I mean, if you're ever looking for a treat, go watch JoJo Scott's senior highlights, because oh my, it's a blast. It really is.
Yeah, I think you put it well. Because I mean, I also I loved JoJo Scott when he committed, but I do think that you were probably ultimately the flag bearer when it came to that hype train. So yeah, I I'll leave it to you, I guess, to sum it up. Then I think you put it better than I could. But I guess that takes us to now. This is number two,
Number two, yes.
and so I had a couple here that were from the same class, committed around the same time, and were kind of like cherries on top for what was like otherwise like on paper like one of the best classes that K-State ever had. So I'll lead with this first one, with Trey Spivey. Like I remember when Spivey committed, I was so excited about Trey's potential. The way that he was able to like contort his body like around defenders and like absorb hits, make guys miss. Like I was looking at this guy and thinking, purely just based on you know like physical traits, like he was like the archetype of like exactly what you'd want for like an ex receiver, like an all conference guy. And he didn't end up even being the best receiver in his class. Of course, that was Jace Brown, but he didn't do too much here. He transferred and he's been solid at Arizona. Still, he shows those physical flashes, but man, I remember that was a big recruiting win late in the cycle, and that was up against Oklahoma State. I believe was I'm a big contender for him. That and also Arizona. So that was a big recruiting win at the time as well. Still kind of at a time where we weren't always accustomed to being competitive against other schools. That was still a fairly new thing for us. So that was a massive recruiting win, and I was so excited when we landed him. It's a shame it didn't really work out K-State between the Cats and Trey Spivey, but that doesn't take away the excitement I had when he committed.
Yeah, he was, at the time he committed, I think I called him the most complete receiver that K-State had recruited in quite some time. And I stand by that. It's just, it's not a secret at this point. He just couldn't learn the playbook at K-State. And that was what kept him off the field. It was never a talent thing. It was always a, does he know what play is being run kind of thing, which honestly makes it hurt worse to me. But he did just barely miss my list. But even if he didn't, he would have been the second receiver on my list. Probably if we were expanding this to 10, he'd probably be somewhere in the 8 range, 7 or 8, somewhere in there. But the body control, I like that you pointed that out. His body control mixed with the ability that he just had vacuums attached to his hands were what drew me to him so much. And it wasn't like he was slow either. So he was a very complete and very good receiver who just never put it together at K-State. But I don't think that takes away from the excitement that we had for him. Now, my number 2 is, now I want to point out that the guys that I'm about to, my top 2 were not my highest rated guys in their respective classes. In other words, I didn't think they were the best or the surest thing in their respective classes, but I still liked them more than the people that were ahead of them. And to me, the embodiment of that is Keegan Collins, because Keegan Collins is the most fun offensive line tape that I have seen since we've been doing the show, just because it's him bullying people. And it's him bullying people in a somewhat technically sound way, because he does have some some run blocking snaps. It's not like who's the guy this year? It's from Missouri, Jackson, Missouri.
Oh, I was about to say Keaton, but no.
No,
Bennett Fraser, you mean?
Bennett Fraser. Thank you. Um, oops. But the Keegan Collins bullied people in a way that it was very much, it's still technically sound, and he just had that sort of attitude alongside it. If you look at his tape and Finn Walker's tape from this year, it's very similar in that it's a lot of bully ball and it's a lot of being better than someone, but not because the other guy sucks, I think is the best way to put it. So, yes, Keegan Collins was my second favorite commit. My top rated commit in this class was Max Lovett. He will not be making the list, but he would have been 6. He would have been a very easy 6 for me. But it's just tape, and I'm so sad that Keegan Collins is not in the CFB 27 rosters yet. But I play on PC, so give it like 30 minutes. He probably will be.
Yeah, Keegan Collins is a really strong pull. Him and Oliver Miller were both guys I considered for this list. Because those are both guys that instantly really jumped off the page when they committed. I thought, and for very different reasons. I think you put Keegan Collins' appeal really well, and yeah, it is that he does kind of have that bully ball mentality to him, and you just kind of need offensive linemen like that. Like there is a lot more psychology that goes in to football than people really give it credit for. So having a guy like Keegan Collins that can be that enforcer on your line, but also back it up with like being good at the sport. Like you can't just like say stuff and be bad, but he's a strong player, and like that brings a certain credibility, I think, to if he ends up playing, it'll bring a certain credibility to K-State and the offensive line in the future. So that's a really strong pull. And you also brought up Max Lovett. I know before the show I said I would have Lovett on the list, but I kind of shuffled on the fly on who I was going to include here. So Lovett's like a near miss for me as well. I was going to probably put him in the top 3 originally, but I really did kind of move things around because Lovett was one where it took me like a week or two to really kind of like dial up how like big of a fan of him I was. But once I got to that point, then, it was like no coming back from that. But I guess that leads me to my number 1, obviously outside of Avery and Lincoln. And it's a bit of a sad entry because his career K-State has mostly been struck by injury, and that's Asa Newsom. Asa Newsom was like a perfect cherry on top to what was at the time like the best class that K-State had like in years, probably 15, 20 years. And he was a guy that K-State had pursued really thoroughly throughout the entire cycle. And that was one that I think Chris Kleiman took a lot of the lead on because he was an Iowa guy. And that was one where we fought tooth and nail with Iowa up to the very bitter end. And K-State was able to do just enough at the end of the day to pluck a 4-star linebacker athletic freak out of the state of Iowa. So being able to get a like kind of fringe blue chip defensive player out of Iowa is not an easy thing to do. This was even before they really started laying eggs all the time. So like this like was a huge win. It was like I think probably the defining sign, at least in my mind. I think it was the defining sign that recruiting was finally changing for K-State because, I mean, obviously we had the Dylan Edwards saga. We had Jordan Allen commit, who was a 4-star and was someone I considered. We had Avery, of course, was the big one. That was massive, and that's the one that made all the headlines, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, those were a lot of in-state guys. But Asa Newsom was one where we went into the backyard of a rival school and a school in another conference that has a great reputation for developing guys on the side of the ball that Asa Newsom plays. That's Iowa, and then of course our rival Iowa State. And we went in there and just through basically old-fashioned boots on the ground recruiting work, we were able to pull off a major recruiting win, and I was ecstatic about that. And it really helped that Asa Newsom's film was awesome. And to pair with that, he had great track times as well. He had future All Big 12 guy written all over him. His career has just been he is I think one of the sadder stories in recent memory at K-State so far, just with how many injuries he's had to struggle with. I'm not saying the door's shut on him ever becoming a strong player for K-State, but it's really unfortunate how things have shaken out for Asa Newsom, because I think if he had remained healthy, I think he'd be a surefire starter at linebacker, and I think he'd be a monster, honestly.
Yeah, the fact that he's blown up both of his knees really sucks for him. And he's not the only person in the 23 class to have injury history. Camden Beebe actually ended up medically retiring. I think it was due to concussions, unless it was something to do with his heart. I don't remember which. I want to say it's concussions, though.
I think it was a mix of concussions and I think a lingering back thing, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. I can't say for certain. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you're on the right track there with concussions.
Yeah. Asa was very exciting when he committed, and this would have been another case in that class where he's higher rated than a guy I was more excited for, but the defender I was most excited for in this class was Ryan Davis, and I was always a massive Ryan Davis guy. He's at Baylor now after he had a really solid year. This last year, ended up transferring to follow Joe Klanderman. But Asa Newsom at number one, that's if we were doing I posed this question on Bosco's Boys, and this was one of the answers I had in mind for that question. You get to pick one person from the last 4 recruiting classes to A, stay at K-State their entire career, and B, stay healthy their entire career. And Asa Newsom was basically the reason that question existed. Him and Jake Clifton, funnily enough, were the reasons that question existed. One for the leaving part and one for the injury. But it shouldn't be a secret who, if you've listened to the show, you know who my number one is going to be. It's wide receiver from the 2025 class. That's Larry Porter IV. LP4, when he committed, it was a little bit of a surprise, and then I watched his film, and I was like, wait, what do you mean this guy only has 2 committable offers? That was, I thought I was getting catfished, or I looked up the wrong guy. There's another Larry Porter IV somewhere. But no, Larry Porter, LP4, showed so many flashes in his tape. He was very similar to Trey Spivey in that he looked like a complete receiver. But Larry Porter took the body control that Trey Spivey had, traded it for twitch and speed. Larry Porter still, to this day, looks ridiculously fast on his tape. And he's posted multiple highlights of himself doing pretty much what I thought he would do, which is just making ridiculous play after ridiculous play. And yeah, there's no one else that to me is even really in the same stratosphere until you get to this year's class, and of course Avery and Lincoln Cure. Now, the fun thought experiment, since we have a little bit more time to go, is to talk about holistically. There are 3 things I want to talk about. One, the recruiting classes that got blanked, because I think there was one class each that got blanked for both of us. 2, where would our favorite commits from this year's class ended up slotting? And 3, who just barely missed the list? So we can talk about recruiting classes that got blanked, because for me, the 24 class is the one that did not have a representative on my top 5 commits list. Gus Hawkins and Caden Massey were both close for me, but even then, those are closer to 10 than they are to 5 for me. And it's strange to say that, because I remember really liking the 24 class, and now I look back on it, and there are exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess Ryan Howard. So 6 people on this class that are still here. Everyone else is gone.
Yeah, like this is a class that, like most everyone is gone or is contributing, other than the offensive line, where like I think all of them other than Massey are still here. So like that kind of core stayed intact, because I remember that was like kind of the calling card of that class. Was people were saying, you know, there's a future like starting offensive line and Ryan Howard that committed, and I couldn't blame it. And Gus Hawkins, for me, I think him along with maybe Max Lovett were probably like kind of like vying for my first cut. Like one of them would be 6, and so therefore the other would be 7. And I can't really pick out another guy, I think, from that class that would maybe be up there. I think Massey's probably the closest, because he was someone I was really excited about. And some of that's also because Caden Massey was like the only example of legitimate journalism that we've ever done on this podcast. So, but some of that is just kind of biased from that situation, I think, because we went and we're at his commitment ceremony. But
I didn't go to that.
Oh, that's right. You had to move to Topeka at that point. So yeah, it was just me, because I got off work a little early, I think, and the ceremony was at like 7:00, I think, and I was like, I don't have anything to do today, so I'm just going to drive to Linden, and I'm going to go to this and be a member of media. Turns out they'll just let you walk in, and like if you look like and act like you belong, like they'll just let you interview people. So,
it was awesome for him to take the time.
Yeah,
but the 24 class got blanked. If we're like going back, I think the best class for us is still probably 26. But if we were to take this year's commits into account, everyone we'd be moving down 2 slots, because my 1 and 2 would be Anatoni Tahi and Brooklyn Maxey. And there's nothing else I could really say about that. That's why those are the 2 I am horrified of losing.
I think Tahi is there, Maxey's there. I think you have to. I would include Cedric Marsh with that as well. I think Cedric
there too.
Yeah. Wait, who was the last one you said?
Olmont.
Oh yeah, God. Yeah. That's the thing with this class is like an in-state 4-star guy like Cooper Unmocked is like not getting forgotten, but like he's not like the premier like athlete out of this group, like which is just absolutely crazy to think about. So I'm ecstatic about the ceiling of this next class. Keeping them together throughout their senior seasons is going to be a big challenge. But man, like I love Cedric Marsh as an edge rusher and just a pure defensive end. But then, Tahi, that was some of the most fun that like I've had watching defensive film. I think he's like like I mean, like the conversation there for me is probably like Asa Newsome, then JoJo Scott, and Marsh, and then Tony Tahi. No particular order, like, and then that group, and then Brooklyn Maxey, I think belongs up there too, like, and Maxey's such a weird recruit, but he's a lot of fun. Like he, like this, kind of like the archetype of the type of guy that should be like the number one receiver in the class, but he just kind of is. Like he's just that good. Like I look at him and I'm like, I don't I don't mean like his film. I just mean I'm not expecting a guy with that haircut to be a good wide receiver. So
don't you lecture me with your $30 haircut.
It's $25. They increased the price at the beginning of the month. Inflation is hitting my barber. I'm very sad about it.
No. But yeah, Maxey and Tahi. Yeah, I think both of them would overtake LP4. Honestly, Tahi might take over Cure for me, which is wild to say.
He is really pushing there. I think the only reason that I'll say this. I think the best argument for keeping Cure as the sort of number one guy or number two guy, I guess, and like keeping Tahi out is entirely because there was way more buildup for Lincoln Cure. And I think that can kind of add to the excitement. Having the buildup and the narratives, and what are they going to do? Tahi, and frankly, a lot of guys in this class, there was not a lot of fanfare around them prior to their commitment. A lot of these guys just kind of committed quietly, and that was it. There's not been a whole lot of publicity. And I think that's the way that the current staff wants it to be. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest struggle point, I think. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just that, I remember tracking, we followed Lincoln Cure for probably almost a year before he committed. Avery, 2 years, I think. He was on the minds of K-State recruiting fans. Tahi, he just kind of showed up. And that's no disrespect to him. That's not me downplaying his talent. It's just wildly different recruiting timelines. And for what it's worth, it seems a lot has happened in the background with Anatoni Tahi. But publicly facing stuff, it's been a little more minimal.
Yeah. And now we can talk about our 6 through 10 guys. I'll just rattle through them really quick. My number 6 would have been Max Lovett. My number 7 would have been Gus Hawkins. Number 8 would have been Ryan Davis. Number 9, God help me, would have been Donovan Ryman. That's a name that I haven't heard in quite some time. And then number 10 would have been Caden Massey. So, yeah, 2 guys from the 24 class end up making the top 10, but none make the top 5. I think it goes 2, 2, and 2. Where because there's 2 in the 22 class, 2 in the 23, 2 in the 24, 2 in 25, and then so it is 2 each. That's not on purpose. It just happened to work out that way.
Yeah, Donovan Ryman, that was a guy I particularly remember. When he committed, we were both pretty high on him. He had some technical ability, and we were okay, this is kind of a developed pass rusher. He could be something. And the answer of what he could be was absolutely nothing. He did not do much at Kansas State. He transferred somewhere, presumably played. I do not know what happened to him. That's it, basically.
Louisiana Tech, and he had 2.5 sacks last season. He has 1 more year of eligibility.
He is still eligible. Wow.
Yeah.
Very young. But no, that's a great poll. Gus Hawkins, I think, is my number 6. Lovett's my 7. I'll probably change my mind again later. But I remember when Hawkins committed, that was someone like I really rang the bell for him being a 4-star pretty early, and I felt very vindicated when he hit that mark. And I was very excited about that ad. So that's a big one there. But yeah, like tons of other options to look at too. One that I'll go ahead and throw in, then I guess from the 2023 class is Andrew Metzger. I remember being really excited about Andrew Metzger. So for every Garrett Oakley, there's an Andrew Metzger, unfortunately. Wingspan isn't everything unless it is.
Yeah. I was never a Metzger guy. That was like I think I had him at like 12. I think him and Ancio were right next to each other for me in that class. But yeah, I think this is a fun exercise, and it's not just fun because we get to relive the excitement of these guys committing. And I also think there's something to be said that, you know, it's exciting to see which guys were evaluation hits for us. Like, I think Toby was a hit, but the rest of our guys are it's more or less still wait and see for most of our guys, except for Asa at number 2, who, God, if he just stayed healthy, man, like it makes me so sad that he's so hurt all the time.
And it really stings. Like I love Asa. I still love Asa as a prospect. Like, I so badly want him to just have a breakout season. Like, that would make me so happy because he really honestly deserves it for everything he's been through. It would also definitely vindicate my prior opinions about Asa Newsom. And so I definitely have some personal motivation in seeing him succeed. And that it makes me look smart. But that's not really a great motivation, I guess. Or it's not very convincing, at least.
What are you talking about? Being right is a great motivation.
For me, but really not for anyone else. But I do have 2 more spots still. So Larry Porter the fourth, I think, has to be mentioned for me. And then the last one, and this was a major miss on, I think, both of our parts, but also recruiting services in general. That's Jalen Clem.
Oh God, that's a name. Him and Donovan Ryman were both like, I expected Donovan Ryman to be the biggest pull of the episode. No, Jalen Clem's up there too.
If this show had started like 1 year earlier, then we all could have fallen victim to the curse of Taylor Warner as well, because he had to medically retire. Well, actually, no, he was 2 years prior. I think, was he class of 2020? Yeah, I thought he was 21. But yeah, no, he was in the 2020 class. So yeah, so I was off by a year on him. But he was a 4-star, and that was a big time ad at the time. But I don't think he ever played it down.
Nope.
For his sake of his injury.
Yeah. So I'm curious what everyone else's list would be. Normally, this is where people engagement farm. We don't really get the opportunity. There's no point in engagement farming when we're mostly a podcast medium where engagements A, either don't exist, or B, don't do anything. But I am curious, people on Twitter, what your list would be of the 5 guys that you were most excited about. Again, keeping the stipulation that 1 and 2 would always be Avery and Lincoln. But I had a lot of fun. With this. Now my brain is swimming with top 5 evaluation misses, where number 1 and 2 are also really obvious.
I love looking at the list from the 2020 class. but I know that isn't technically the COVID class, but it is so nuts that if you go back and look at the class of 2020, the number one player ranked on their according to On Three's rankings was Kamari Gaines. I have vague memories of Kamari Gaines playing a bit in the COVID season and basically not at all the following year. And then I think he transferred. And he was a JUCO guy, I think.
Let me really quick see if he ever did anything. No, he didn't.
Yeah, he was really pedestrian at K-State. I mean, he had 2 sacks in 2020 on 14 total tackles. Then in 2021, he only had 2 total tackles and a forced fumble, and that was it. And that's that's the number one guy.
Oh no, that's so brutal. That's so brutal.
Yeah, there's a few gems or like guys that worked out in this 2020 class, but there's like an equal number of guys that you really do raise your eyebrows and like honestly like don't remember them. But like there were some gems 2020 class. I mean, this is a Deuce, this was Howard, this was Felix, uh, Hadley Panzer, I think qualifies like he in this class. Cody Stufflebean, I mean, like he was a long tenured player. Carver Willis, like wasn't incredible, but like started at tackle for multiple schools, so qualifies. Tyrone Delaney in this class, and he somehow from K-State and actually played.
What a rabbit hole we've fallen down. Do you have any final notes before we sign off?
No, nothing else from me.
Okay. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggieVilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I'm at Connor Balthasar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, link found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.